For the record, I've placed this blog, or this post on this blog, about my understanding of the expanded version of the Euclidean algorithm and the expanded version of the golden ratio along with it, as one post alongside this other post about RSA encryption for a reason. Excuse me. It's to mildly hint, that there's an association between the two, because there is. The greatest common divisor methodology is utilized periodically throughout the procedure of doing the RSA encryption according to this young kid that I learned it from. And that brings me back full circle again to the recall of an intuition I had 30 years ago, that I would make a discovery in the field of the golden ratio that would undermine cryptography. I immediately objected to participating in such a scheme, such as the intuition was advising me that I would make this discovery. On the grounds that, this will shake up society in a way that's not exactly nice. And immediately the intuition response came back, don't worry about it, it's meant to be. 10 years went by, I forgot I had the intuition, which is just like me, it happens all the time. I have them, they go through one side of my brain and out the other. At which point I made the discovery, but forgot what it was for. I didn't remember. And I had the opportunity to share it, which would have put me in better stance with my mother and the person she hired to deem me incompetent. Inasmuch, at least I would have gotten some respect, but I didn't get any from those pair of cohorts, So, for me, losing my son is not just all the error of commission made by various people. People do nasty things to us only because there's a void that they take advantage of, and that void is my fault. So I had a bad experience a couple of weekends ago in which I was extremely insulted and offended. And it took a young boy, seeing him play his guitar on his Facebook page. I'm not into heavy metal, but somehow watching and listening to him and laughing over, that this is heavy metal, you don't like it. I know I don't like heavy metal, but I'm watching it, and I can see his creativity and all that nice stuff. So it's like, it's just my taste of music is not the same, but it's really cool what he's doing. That took me out of my depression and released my anger. So my anger was not being suppressed anymore, because I was trying to suppress it. Plus, I was inspired to revive my knowledge, what little I have, in memory, the gist of it, the overview, and spread it around. So I got very busy. Plus, it gave me something to do to work off my anger energy, because then I understood, thinking it through. Because in the course of spreading it around, I learned that it's associated with RSA encryption, and I thought, wow, so this is the application. Oh my God, I had that intuition 30 years ago that I would make this discovery. Now, I don't know RSA encryption except what I got off of a YouTube video. Barely understand it, just barely enough to go through the motion. I certainly don't know how my discovery applies discreetly, in terms of the details. But I did my homework. I went through the math, and so I understand the logistics, the protocol for undergoing the encryption of a message using RSA encryption technique and the de-encryption. And oddly enough, back around 8 years ago, I wrote a JavaScript program for encrypting an email link, the email within an email link on a web page, because I was really fed up with spammers. So it's interesting, I've done this before, and I used techniques we were taught in elementary school, Well, we weren't taught. I bought a book while I was there. The teacher gave us a roster of books we could select to purchase. And I purchased one. It was on codes and secret writing, and I loved it. I really got into it. It was meaty and gutsy, and I loved it. Turns out, a few lifetimes ago, I was into cryptographic messages, but that's, I won't get into that, a past life story. Save that for another day. So I have an interest in the subject, to put it mildly. But I didn't know this back then, that I had a past lifetime that got involved with it. I just know that I have a feeling for it. I was my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Chambard, with a CH. That's the lady who I can thank for opening me up to codes and secret writing. So I had a little understanding based on that book that I bought as a 5th grader. And I took great interest then. And 8 years ago I took interest in writing a web page that's now off the internet. You have to look on archive.org to find it. And it has to do with a JavaScript program embedded in a web page, serving as the device or the machine, shall we say, for encrypting an email link and de-encrypting it. You have this little JavaScript software package you embed in your web page, and so the spammers, when they come, the robot spammers, the spam bots, they can't find your email address unless they know how to activate the JavaScript. I don't know. Maybe they can these days. They probably can, but back then they couldn't. So it was a pretty cool device, and it worked. It was flawless. It worked at the time. So little did I realize that I was just skimming the surface of what is meant to be, about what I'm supposed to do with. I forget, oh yeah, I have this gift, and it's just, no, see, I didn't remember. So now I've made the connection, and I put it before you. I don't expect to make the connection myself of how to apply my discovery to RSA encryption or any other encryption. I see that RSA encryption, now that I've gone through all the steps, it involves the greatest common divisor methodology of Euclid's algorithm, but for finding the greatest common divisor, but I don't know how it relates, and I don't expect to. These things just happen, or else they don't. But it's my responsibility to share the knowledge, now that I know what it's applied for after 30 years, and share the knowledge of what it's applicable to, so that you might know. And if you're a mathematician and you're into cryptography and the Euclidean algorithm, maybe you'll figure it out. I don't know if I can, and I don't expect to anytime soon, put it mildly, because higher mathematics is not my thing. The only reason why I made this discovery about the expanded version of the Euclidean algorithm and the infinite range of the golden ratio is because I have an algebra. My proficiency at math is got no further than Algebra 2 in high school. I was placed on an advanced math track in the 7th grade by my 7th grade teacher in elementary school because I had signs of proficiency. But I lost interest very quickly because they didn't give me what I wanted. I wanted the language of nature. I didn't want the language of man or the language of math. Well, it is the language of nature, but not specifically the alphabet of the language of nature that I was seeking. What I was seeking was knowledge of the crown chakra. I didn't know it at the time. So I got bored, and I flunked, and then they dropped me out of that, and I kept flunking, and that's where I got stalled, was the Algebra 2 class that I was taking at the time. We were like 1 or 2 years ahead of everybody else in the school system, and I flunked out of that, and I had to repeat it with a regular teacher when I got taken off the advanced math track, and I still had a hard time struggling with it. I took it again in college, and I took it 4 times, basically. And I can say now, okay, I know the basic stuff like polynomials. There was a kid in our advanced math track they made jokes. They were real geeks. We made jokes. Well, I was a loner and a quiet person, but the active extroverts made jokes about everything, and polynomial, that's supposed to me it's funny. Poly, Pollyanna. Oh no, I'm sorry, but shows you I'm still in that group of mentality. It's just that I lost the desire, and they kept it up, but I lost it. I got dissatisfied with it. I started reading Tolkien's The Trilogy and The Hobbit, and I thought, I'm getting more out of this. Sitting in the front row, and the teacher would come and whack he tried to get me interested in the... No, he took my book away. That was... He took my book away for the and shoved it in his desk drawer for the remainder of the class to make sure I'd pay attention. But I wasn't interested. This is, nonsense. What am I sitting here for? I'm not interested anymore. I didn't have the nerve to say, please, sir, take me out of advanced math track. I didn't have the heart. He did it for me by giving me a flunk. I don't know, it was an F or a D, and I was doing really bad. He was very kind. He was very forgiving. He's just I made no effort from that point forward. So yeah, I'm at least a little satisfied that I managed to do something in higher math. And there are a lot of things I learned that are germane to this topic. I learned things about logic, about prime numbers, a very simple thing. But stuff that maybe would help me figure out how to apply this expanded Euclidean algorithm to find... Because there was another thing that happened. One of the evenings, when we had our chats, the pre-lecture chats with Charlie on Friday night, Charlie Ludes, he dropped... And he did this a few times during lecture as well. He talked about keys, and he talked about key makers, locksmiths, having something called a master key that opens all locks, and only they have it. And he did it with a smile and a sense of joy. And I thought, you mean to hint that maybe I've been given this? Must be my TM, Yeah, I didn't get it. It was the number theory that I was studying on the golden ratio. It takes me 30 years now to figure that out. That's what he was alluding to. Because he was always coy. He never said anything directly, do this, don't do that. He said it maybe to other people or in general during the course of the lecture, but to me he never said that. But so I sometimes I would misunderstand things that he would say because I had to figure it out. What is he talking about? And sometimes during the course of a lecture, he had to take time out and face me in the audience and say, something to the effect, please stop this, because I was busy going on in my mind. Oh, is it me? Is it me you're talking about? Did I make a mistake? And he said, no, I'm working with somebody else here. Cool it, It's not always about you all the time. Oh, I'm not that self-important. Oh, there's other people you're working on. Oh, okay. So this was an instance where I didn't get it, that he might be referring to me. I thought it might be something else. Oh, reading the Akashic records, something I might have acquired from a past life. Not something now. Not something now. And so when I had this unearthing 20 years ago of the expanded version of the golden ratio and the expanded version of the Euclidean algorithm that goes with it, all I got out of it was the ability to recall a past lifetime in which I recalled that I was somehow involved with the destruction of the planet that we were living on, and that's why we have two population groups on this planet, of old souls, a smaller population group, and a larger one of natives, souls to this planet who are young souls, who are struggling to catch up with the old souls. It's a mixture. And I know this because during the Renaissance, we had full use of both the silver ratio, which was used on this other planet, 2.414, as well as the golden ratio in aesthetic fields of 1.618, which is native to this planet. Because the people who are old souls have the memory of the silver ratio, and we use it in our money. The dollar bill, the length versus the height, is the silver ratio, but our credit card is the golden ratio. So the people who are in charge, namely, the advanced countries of the planet, the central banks of same, have designed money for us with both ratios because it's resident in both of our memories. The active memory of, the physiology that we have now versus the stagnant memory because we don't have that physiology anymore. But we still have the memory of having all those lifetimes in that kind of physiology, which is different than our physiology. It appreciates music differently, art. The Sanskrit was different. The astrological sun signs and houses were different. not only different by type, but different in quantity, which makes them different by type. When you change the quantity, you change the type. Type comes from quantity. Quantity, numerology is simply the theory of number at its most basic sense, in which meaning of three, a system of three components that work together as a system, is different than if you've got a system of two. And this is what the crown chakra is all about, the first 16 primes. And what do they mean? And interestingly enough, my birth date makes use of a lot of those a few of those very important numbers that are in the crown chakra. So it's very strange what, Anyway, a little sidebar there. So, well, I lost my train of thought. So I guess this is where I should end my yabba yabba. But it's worth noting, and now I've realized I have to post my discoveries off my personal websites because people are offended about some of the other stuff I'm into. Sorry, I have a lot of interest, not a lot, but a few, and they aren't, we've become so compartmentalized in our socialized style of thinking that we can't be a Renaissance person and deal with multi-interests that are not at all seemingly related to each other. But some of us just have a talent just for a number of, or a few different topics that are seemingly not related to each other, and they're important to us. So, to accommodate people, what I've decided to do, I started to post this information on my website, but I decided I'll put it on a public website. And I think my blog at blogspot.com, I think is a good choice. I created a Google site, and the name is Antenarisis, the Greek term for Euclidean algorithm. And I started another YouTube channel by that name, Antenarisis-Euclidean algorithm. Because I need to separate it from my person and all the other things I'm into so that people don't get distracted by the other things that I'm into. And just focus on the math. Because now that I'm really healthy with all these protocols I follow, I don't have to worry about my health anymore that much, Just eat, Make sure I eat. But I don't have to worry about how my digestive system and elimination and whatnot will handle it because it handles it really nicely. So I can now put my attention back on something like math and present it to you and hope that you get something out of it. I don't know what to make out of it, like I say, but I hope one of us, I'm in no hurry. Hey, if you beat me to it, fine. More power to you. I'll continue to dwell on it because I don't have anything else to dwell on at the moment. But somehow or another, I'll figure out how to apply it, maybe, or somebody else will. Either way, we'll figure this thing out, and we'll put an end to secrets. Because as a 15-year-old, I was a strong believer that there are none. There are no secrets. There are only mysteries. Mysteries waiting to be solved. But there is no such thing as a secret, such that, you can't have this knowledge. No. There is no such thing. You have to earn it. You have to earn the consciousness, firstly, and then the effort to apply yourself to work out the details. But no, there's no such thing as any kind of secret. It doesn't exist. That's a made-up human conception, having to do with authority, figures, pyramid scheme of authority, who's in charge, and they tell you what's what. When you go to the universe directly for your knowledge, you realize there are no secrets. You can know anything you want to know. Yet there are mysteries, because you'll never know everything as a human being. So there'll always be mysteries waiting to be uncovered by somebody else that you won't be able to, because you've got a lifespan and it's only so long. But be that as it may, they are merely mysteries, and if you put your attention on it, you can figure it out in time by earning the right to know. And you have to earn it by your own self-effort, your own self-intention. That's the effort, is your intention. If you have the intention, then all you need is time, and the rest works itself out. Which might involve your working with details, because I spent 3 years studying this golden ratio in its expanded format. But be that as it may, you have to have the consciousness first. You have to earn that first, and that's the result of your intention to have the consciousness for it. If you don't have the intention, you won't have the consciousness. Why should Mother Nature give you something you don't want? Want in terms of your heart, because that's where intention is lodged, in a very ever so secret place inside your heart. And we may know the thoughts of others, Patanjali tells us, but we cannot know their intention. So I guess there is a secret in its intention. But you can deduce it from somebody's actions, what their intentions are. It might take a while. But apparently intention is not the same thing as a thought. A conscious thought that you can read somebody's mind and know their thoughts. Apparently an intention is something else. I think what it is an intention is not a thought. It's a feeling in the heart. And if you make contact with somebody's intention with the help of their behavior and your attention on the subject, it's because now you've gained access to their heart. And you come to know whether or not you really will like them or not. Or whether or not you want to have nothing to do with them. And nothing will change your mind. Once you know somebody's intention, nobody can argue you out of your opinion about that person or subject or whatever, because you know it at its heart, at its kernel, in its heart. So that's potentially said you know somebody's thoughts through their heart. Through their heart. But he didn't talk about knowing their heart. Well, I guess that implies you would know their heart, but if you were to know their thoughts, but not necessarily. Very often we gloss over, we just skim right over somebody's intentions and we think, well, we're not interested. I'm sure it's good intentions. But some people are not so inclined to think that way. They think the opposite and say, okay, you got to prove yourself to me that you're a good person, because I'm just assuming that everybody's bad. Because I've been burned so many times. I mean, my neighbor friend had told me some years ago, working in the insurance business, the mortgage lending business, he couldn't trust a soul. So they had to prove themselves to him. Because they came to him with a bunch of X's, which they had to uncheck. X's in terms of their deficiencies. He didn't look at them, because they were all liars, and they all wanted money for nothing, So he had to learn the hard way. I was not so predisposed. I just trust everybody. I just want to, Okay, this is a lot of sidebar. I better stop talking now.